Welcome to Discovery Watch with John Kaiser.
I'm your host, Jim Goddard. Welcome back to the show, John.
Jim, pleasure to be back on the show.
John, Niobium Metals published its PEA for the James Bay Niobium project. Does it deserve to proceed to a feasibility study?
Niobium Metals came up with 3 different scenarios: an underground-only scenario, a combined open pit and underground scenario, and then, what really is a surprise, a complete open pit scenario that would operate for 30 years and mine 71 million tons and generate another 120 million tons of waste. And the open pit scenario came out with the best numbers. It was, in Canadian dollars, $1 billion after-tax net present value at the 8%, with a 27.5% IRR, and the CapEx was $510 million, half of the NPV. So those are good numbers, what you want to see from a PEA, which ultimately you want to see confirmed by a pre-feasibility study, and the company has signaled that it does want to proceed with a pre-feasibility study. Now, it only has about 62 million shares fully diluted, so $1 billion future target, that's $12 to $16 stock price, but they still need to raise money. They need to raise at least $10 million to do a 15,000 meter drill program, which includes infill drilling, because you need to have all of your inferred resource as indicated, measured and indicated for a pre-feasibility study. And they also need to do more metallurgical work, because at the end of the day, all these types of specialty metal projects, they require a customized flow sheet. They're getting 78% recovery, which is quite good for a pyrochlore deposit. I think they can get it to 80%. And the thing that puzzled me was not too long ago, the Moose Cree First Nation based in Moosonee was very much against even allowing a drill permit for this project, which was discovered in the 60s and even had a feasibility study done back in the 70s, but it's been fallow ever since. And the chief who was in charge of the Moosonee group, she was basically against mining in principle. It's dirty, it's bad, it hurts the environment. It should only be done in other countries in the world where the people, where there are dictators running the country, and the downstream victims have no defense at all. And so this project for several years went absolutely nowhere because they could not get a so-called, exploration agreement with the Moose Cree First Nation. But they did manage to get it last year after there was an election where the existing chief got turfed out, a new chief came in, other band members were appointed to the tribal council. This group has looked at this from a more balanced perspective. Will this hurt our community? Will it help our community? And one of the odd things that emerged this year is the company worked through different scenarios and engaged in consultations with the people in Moosonee, was all of a sudden they kind of favored an open pit mining scenario. And it is in an area surrounded by wetlands. They would need to move a stream, divert it to go around. And so you scratch your head, why would the First Nations want an open pit mine in their backyard? And the press release makes it clear that the open pit mine scenario would involve a fleet of 64 trucks hauling this stuff out of the pit, the waste to the dump, or to the processing facility, which will be about 6,500 tons per day for all of the scenarios. And who's going to be the owner and operator of this fleet? This is right in their backyard, 20, 30 kilometers away from Moosonee. So clearly they see, wow, we could become the contractor who buys this fleet and operates it, and we have jobs that don't involve going down into an underground mine, which nobody particularly is keen about. and it requires a considerably more complex type of equipment and operators to go underground. So it turns out the Moose Cree First Nation favor the scenario which is more lucrative for the Niobe Metals perspective. The stock popped up yesterday to 85 cents, but then faded away, and it's now back into the sort of 75, 80 cents. There has been a big seller that's probably still out there. The company does need to raise some more money. The question is, do they go for all of the $10 million at these levels, or do they wait for the market to digest the implications of this PEA and end up pricing it higher? In my view, with these numbers, this should be in the $1 to $2 range right now. But the market is what it is. It has a difficult time getting its head around something like a niobium project. I was hoping that the technical report would be out in 45 days so that we can look at the numbers more closely to see how this works out over the life of the mine. But apparently, due to the COVID situation, public companies now have 90 days instead of 45 days to file their technical report. So it could be early in the new year before we see the nitty-gritty details of how this plan works. But in the meantime, the company now has to go around, show the story to the different financing potential partners, get at least some of the money going and raised, and get set for a January drill program, because this is the best time of the year to do this anyways. And one of the things that was interesting is they pointed out that from the drilling they did earlier this year in January, February, they've established that there is a north raking, plunging, high-grade core which has not yet been delineated, and they want to do some drilling to show how big this is. And I'm scratching my head saying, why do you want to waste money on developing additional high-grade resources that would only be mined in an underground scenario? And the obvious answer is they want to show up front that this is not just going to be a 30-year open pit mine, and then then the whole Moosonee turns back into a ghost town. No, there is deeper underground mineable potential that can take this well beyond a 30-year mine life. In other words, it's a project that could economically sustain the Moosonee community for multi-generations. And because it's niobium and not something ordinary like copper or gold, niobium's a technology metal, so the smarter individuals within the community could end up studying something related to niobium technology, and become this whole project could become a stepping stone for an entire community, and not just a temporary hole in the ground, the way the Ottawa-Piscat project of De Beers turned out to be, 15, 20-year mine life. The diamonds never saw anybody because they were all in a chain of custody, and now it's just a big hole in the ground, and De Beers has given up on mining diamonds up in the northern part of the James Bay lowlands.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Value from success, growth in discovery. Golden Arrow Resources is a well-funded gold-copper exploration company with proven management and prospective properties in Chile, Argentina, and Paraguay. Golden Arrow trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, symbol GRG, on Frankfurt, symbol G6A, and the OTCQB, symbol GARWF. For more information, visit us at goldenarrowresources.com or call Sean at 778-686-0135.
Welcome back. We're speaking with John Kaiser. John, has FPX Nickel had any luck raising capital for its Dakar pre-feasibility study, publishing a PEA in mid-September.
When FPX Nickel put out its PEA, it had a $2 billion NPV, and the stock also jumped up to sort of 85 cents level, but it has since settled back. And that company would also, just like Niobium, like to raise $10 million. But it turned out that shopping this on Bay Street was not as easy as expected. Had they got it out in, say, August, it might have been more doable. But after a 4-month financing binge by TSX Venture Juniors, Resource Juniors, that is the best 4-month sequence we have seen since the first quarter of 2011. The market, Bay Street, everybody seems to have taken something of a breather. So a week ago, they settled for a financing of $3.2 million at 55 cents. No warrant, which is what has been the policy, is no warrants attached to any of the earlier financing. And Peter Bradshaw, who was owed about $4.2 million related to the loan that enabled FPX Nickel to buy the 60% Dakar interest from Cliffs, he agreed to convert that into 7.7 million shares at 55 cents, and that cleans up the balance sheet. And since then, in the past week, today they announced they've upsized it to $4.93 million, so 8.9 million additional shares for this financing. That will give them enough money to be ready for the new year. They're not going to be doing any drilling this year. They are going to spend some money on doing further demonstration work on the conversion of their concentrate into a nickel sulfate product, and that, of course, is of great interest to the battery industry. And the whole project itself is of interest because the concentrate that they would produce from a relatively benign mining and processing operation does not have to go through a smelter and all the nasty byproducts that produces. So this Dakar project offers a chain of custody certification of here's where your nickel came from. It was not blended with anybody else. It came from this Dakar project. And they're also working on, with UBC, on the carbon sequestration potential of the tailings, which are magnesium rich. And we hope to hear more about in the next while. But it's good to see FPX Nickel get $5 million into the treasury, clean up the balance sheet and the debt owed to who's basically now the largest shareholder in the company, and see the stage set for what hopefully will be a much more receptive year in 2021 when we figured out what the election outcome is, and hopefully regardless of the outcome that we see a push for infrastructure renewal in the United States that stimulates interest in juniors with metals other than gold and silver as their target.
We'll have more with John Kaiser right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with John Kaiser. John, Forum Energy Metals reported that outcrop sampling at its Love Lake project yielded very lousy nickel and platinum group results. I'm glad you used the technical term lousy. Why is that supposed to be a good thing?
Well, the key word here is depletion. Now, when you just have low grade, when you're hoping for high grade, that's not a good thing. The Love Lake complex is a magmatic intrusion one of those layered systems. It's quite large, 10 by 20 kilometers. Forum owns most of it. In the past, it was explored for platinum group metals, but mainly poking around that surface looking for high-grade showings. Since staking this in 2019, Forum Energy has done a magnetic survey over the entire complex, and this survey can see down to 1,000-meter depth. And in early September, they published the results of this, the 3D modeling, and it showed 3 interesting magnetic anomalies that could be the feeder systems. And the most interesting one is the road anomaly, which is at the western end. And the way these systems work, there's a deposit model called magmatic segregation. As this magma intrudes into the earth, it doesn't actually break surface, it just sits there and it slowly cools. And while it cools, you see separation of different metals. In the case of this type of intrusion, the metals end up combining with sulfur, which usually comes from the country rock that the magma intruded, and it digests it, and the sulfur is already present in it. And this forms sulfides, and because of the metal components such as nickel, copper, cobalt, it's more dense than the other material. So as this whole magma is slowly cooling, the metals are being scavenged out of the whole system, and they slowly settle down into the base of the magma chamber, which keeps being replenished with fresh magma being pumped into the feeder at the base. So you have almost 2 different rivers of material. You have a lighter, less dense material coming in from the bottom, replenishing the magma chamber, while from the top you have this depletion happening where the nickel, the platinum group metals, all these heavier metals are being stripped out and they're sinking down and they settle into the base. And when it's a nice concave base, you get something like the 30 million ton ovoid of Voisey's Bay, which was a nickel, copper, cobalt system in Labrador discovered in 1994. So they believe that they now have this setting, and doing the whole rock geochemistry on the outcropping material at surface, right in the area of this road anomaly, which has all the structural features of this type of feeder system, this was good news because if it was, average for this type of ultramafic intrusive, it wouldn't really be very interesting because you wouldn't even know where to begin. So getting these depleted values in this western part of the road anomaly was good news for the company. And the day after, they announced the whole rock geochemistry results on Tuesday, and a day later they announced $1 million flow-through financing at 15 cents. It appears it's one of these flow-through funds that is participating in it or doing it. So it's not like, hey, we're throwing this out there and come knock on our door if you want a piece of this. It's unfortunate that the price is only 15 cents, but they still have an overhang from the Holy Stone Energy Chinese group, which bought a stake in this company 3-4 years ago when it was still supposed to be a uranium company. They have been selling, and apparently they're down to about 4 million shares, but it's still this overhang that they don't seem to know when they want to get rid of this. When it goes up, they don't want to sell, and then when it goes down, they want to sell. It's that sort of overhang in the market. But with this $1 million in the treasury, the company will be able to start a drilling program in the new year on the Love Lake complex, targeting the road anomaly initially, the Corvin anomaly in the middle of the project. It's a bit deeper. It doesn't extend all the way close to the surface. It's also potentially interesting. And of course, this company is ultimately the 20% partner of the Janus Lake Copper Project, where Rio Tinto, after failing to get its road built and its supplies delivered in January because the COVID shutdown, they got the road built, but they had to stop moving equipment because COVID came along and all movement of people was shut down. They have now established a major camp ready to go in there. They've done a bunch of RC or RAB drilling in the area to assess new targets. So 2021 Rio Tinto is going to be going full bore with a major camp starting in January to find larger, perhaps better grade copper silver zones of this sediment hosted copper silver type mineralization. It's a 50-kilometer long district. It's never really been explored on that scale, more locally in the Janus Lake area. So Forum Energy has that going, and that's also in northern Saskatchewan, not that far from the Love Lake project. And it's now in a position to drive the Love Lake project. And there is a growing interest in these ultramafic complexes, not just because palladium is still at the $2,300, but because in Australia, a little junior called Chalice Gold Mines, which has been on the ASX for 20, 30 years, it's also was on the TSX until recently, finally delisting from then, continuing on the ASX. That was a 10-20 cent stock. They made a discovery on a project they generated from scratch called the Julimar Complex. It's a mere 1 hour's drive northeast of Perth, which is ground zero for the Australian mining and exploration industry. The Julimar Complex is also an ultramafic complex, about 10-12 kilometers long. It's longer than it is wide. It sits mostly inside a state forest. That doesn't mean work can't be done. It's just that nobody bothered. And in March this year, they did a drill program at the southern end, which was outside the state forest, and they got fantastic grades of palladium up to 6 grams per ton. That's $400 rock, and that doesn't even include the platinum and the nickel, copper, cobalt values. So this stock has gone from a 10-20 cent range to $3. It has $1 billion valuation. They're doing the groundwork to be able to explore the entire 10-kilometer length of the Julimar complex. And so this is inspiring the market, saying, okay, let's look at these systems that have simply been assumed to be uninteresting for whatever reason, and Love Lake, in a sense, qualifies for this, but the work that Forum Energy has done, it's been sort of deep scientific stuff led by Larry Halbert, who's an expert in these systems, and they've gradually upgraded the potential of this system, which at surface doesn't really have anything obviously interesting, but they've built a case for this to be a major exploration play in 2021, and the market's going to be hoping that it turns out to be something substantial. With the model that they're chasing now, it's probably more the high-grade nickel, copper, cobalt mineralization, with the PGM showing up in a different part of that system. But it is certainly a positive development for this company, and getting that $1 million in the door while the market's kind of lukewarm, waiting to see how the election plays out, and what all this financing that's been done as it starts to come free trading, what it does to the market. This is a very important development for Forum Energy Metals.
John, thank you so much for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
We've been talking with John Kaiser, his website, KaiserResearch.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.